Hi, my name is Alex, and this is Travel TitBits, episode 2. So, carrying on a little bit from yesterday, um, let's talk about how long it used to take to fly in the 1960s. Well, typically the aircraft I was lucky enough to travel in was called a DC-3, and it used to take a fair old while. One difference to travel today is that when you take off down that runway, you expect to gain height rather quickly. Typically, though, turboprop aircraft was much slower and tended to glide off the runway and take much longer to gain any sort of altitude. It was a much slower sort of travel in those days. Typically, if you were going to European destinations like Spain or Ibiza, it would take you around 2.5 to 3 hours. If you were going to Italy, you could expect to be on board for 3 or 4 hours. And if you were going a little further afield, then going to Greece could take you about 5 hours. There weren't too many amenities on board, apart from your seat and reclining, and if you were next to the window, it was an advantage. At least you could look at something happening outside. Another interesting aspect of it was the fact that you were in a smaller aircraft meant you were more susceptible to the weather. I remember us not leaving the airport because of fog and having to go drive in a coach to another airport where it was also foggy and we couldn't take off there. So flying was definitely a fair weather activity. The other thing that doesn't really compare with flying today is the amenity kit. Well, the only amenity that was of any use on a DC-3 was a thing called a thick brown paper bag. Yes. And there were no sweets inside. The unfortunate thing was, planes were a little less stable than we can expect in the modern age, and any kind of wind or turbulence would throw the little thing around. And it wasn't unusual to gain or drop in height by thousands of feet at a time, which I can tell you was pretty dramatic, and it had the desired effect. Not just on me, but on lots of passengers. You just had to be lucky as to which flight you were on, as to whether it was a smooth flight or a rocky ride. Yes, the good old jet stream. I was having a little read about it today. Wikipedia says it's anything from 4 to 8 miles in height, so that's roughly 21,000 to 42,000 feet. And, excuse me, that is where we used to fly at, mostly around the 22,000 mark. So that was certainly part of the entertainment. The other thing worth mentioning was that compared to today, the cost of flying was significantly less. There was certainly less of us flying. I was quite shocked to have a look at the old flying manifest of Dan Air. They literally had 3 planes in each category maximum for years during the 1960s. And yes, at the time, it seemed like, wow, this is such a big and busy airline. But by today's standards, they were titchy airlines. Extraordinary. So, yes, how much did it cost? Well, in 1963, for 3 people, 2 weeks all-inclusive to Ibiza cost 21 guineas. Now, for those of you who are not too familiar with guineas, this is the equivalent of £1 and 5 pence per guinea. So £22 and 5 pence for an all-inclusive holiday for 3, 2 adults and 1 child to Ibiza, and that was absolutely amazing. In 1972, when we went to Greece, and this time we flew in a de Havilland Comet. It was the first time I'd ever been in a jet aircraft. This journey, that used to take 5 hours, now did the journey to Greece in 2 hours and 40 minutes. As a special treat, I was asked to visit the pilot in the cockpit, and afterwards I was given a handwritten, and I still have it with me, a handwritten flight bulletin from the pilot, and he handwrote that he was really happy to see me, welcomed me to the flight deck, and it was a handwritten description of the entire flight, who all the staff were, and yeah, what an amazing memento. Try getting a handwritten note from the pilot today. Very difficult. Recently, I discovered that there was a program from the 1960s that used to do documentaries on flying, and it was called Look at Life in the 1960s. And I have a copy here. It's the most interesting one of the programs was about air hostesses, the life of air hostesses in the 1960s. Yeah, for anybody who has travelled in that era, it was a complete eye-opener. What I didn't realise, what we didn't see when we were actually travelling ourselves, is what actually was happening in the galley. And essentially, they went shopping before the flights. Quite bizarre, today, we take it for granted that everything gets delivered to the aircraft, but the job of a hostess was to look at the manifest on each flight, and if there were any special requests, they just went to the local supermarket. And to watch these two hostesses at the back of the plane, well, it didn't look like the back of the plane. It looked like a little storeroom, and everything was in separately wrapped boxes, tins. Oh, it was just like a dry cupboard, a home. What really different experience. And if you get a chance to watch this program, I'm sure there'll be links to it on the internet. It sure is an eye-opener to the way we used to travel in the 1960s. So, there you go. That's it for today. We'll catch you again tomorrow.